that are calling in. So I think. Oh,
Yes, Teresa Landrum on the phone.
all right. Hi, Teresa.
All right, so should we go ahead and start with?
Yeah, it looks like someone on a phone has got their hand raised. I don't know if that was Teresa or someone else. Or they just thought they unmuted and
No,
they
that
raised.
wasn't. No, that wasn't me that raised my hand. I'm going to go back on mute.
Okay. All right, whoever's got their hand raised can speak if you can unmute it. If not, I'll assume you're just waving at me. All right, let's go ahead and do introductions or roll call and give a little update of what's going on in your community if you want.
Brad.
I'm here and don't have anything new to report. Thanks.
Charlie.
Present. I am also here and nothing new to report. Thank you.
Christina. Connie Boris.
Connie did say she was going to call in on her way to a meeting.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, Connie.
Okay. Okay, how do I unmute myself? I mean, how do I mute myself? This is the first time I'm calling in by phone.
So are you on an Apple phone?
Yeah.
You should be able to just pull it away and you should see a mute button on the left, top left button on the screen.
Yeah, but I'm driving right now. It's kind of hard
Okay.
to look. Can
yep.
you mute me?
Yep, I can mute you. You just have to star 6 to unmute, I believe.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. While I'm on, though, if I could just say a couple of things. For the next meeting, I think Teresa ran a wonderful meeting for the United Citizens of Detroit. In response, MPART gave presentations, both Abby and Amy Peterson, and I think it was not really applicable to Southeast or to Southwest Detroit and Melvindale at all. The data that was used, I think, was more distracting because it wasn't on point with sites that we live next to. Other questions that we need to address is why hasn't MPART decided to sample here in the Southwest Detroit area for PFAS concentrations in people's plasma by taking blood tests? I mean, I'm grateful they're doing it in Kent County, but what about Detroit? You know, we're the most industrialized place. We have the most PFAS sites, and we're kind of being ignored. And then another thing that was brought up is Eagle does not monitor PFAS sites. We have the construction going on with the Gordie Howe Bridge, fugitive dust emissions going into people's lungs, and nobody cares. And other bad things happening at the Gordie Howe Bridge that I don't want to say on the phone here. But there needs to be Eagle oversight of this kind of thing. So we would like to see those things addressed. Okay, that's it from my end. Thank you. Kelly, you can mute me now.
Thank you, Connie.
Thanks, Connie. I will make note of that.
Daniel Brown.
Dan's here. Updates from us. So we've had several events over the last 6 weeks or so since we met last, where lots of questions about PFAS and fish. I would say that's definitely the key subject that people are interested in right now. How the guidelines are going to affect, fish guidance, how the drinking water standards are going to affect fish guidance. So that keeps coming up, and shout out to Brandon Reed, who gave a really good presentation, kind of walked us through the equations, gave a presentation to Ecology Center, HRWC, and Friends of the Rouge. So that was really helpful, and thanks for that. Beyond that, yeah, so as I said, we had several events. Huron River Day is kind of a major event for us, and we got kind of all the usual questions about PFAS and recreation, and have been updating our resources across our web pages and old blog posts and things like that. There have been several press inquiries, and we had CBS Nightly News came out actually now several months ago, but they just aired the piece recently. But there I think are a few other press pieces that haven't been published yet that we've had inquiries about that people were doing info on background. So looking for that. I don't think any of the information in that's going to be new to anybody on this call, but other press events that'll hit the web that people can share if they're interested. I think that's it for me. I've got my hands full with the toddler tonight, so apologies for that. I'll be a little bit slower to hit the mute button than in previous evenings, but all for me.
Thank
You
you.
sound
Dan.
very calm for somebody in charge of a toddler, so good job. All right.
I did see you on the news and you looked like a natural. Daniel Burlingame. David Norwood. Dave Wynn.
Yep, I'm here.
Elizabeth. Gail Manswitz. Gail Dugan. Jason.
Oh, here.
Jeffrey. Jeremy. Joe. John. Anybody looking on the side to see if people are here? Justin. Ken Harvey. Laura. Leah. Lynn Knopf sent me an email. She's not able to attend tonight. Lynn McIntosh. Margaret. Mary Blanchard.
Here. And I just wanted to say that I had spoken to Abby and they still have not set the meeting for Holly for the town hall. And she had said that there is going to be a call or some kind of communication regarding our other request to have other agencies respond and visit while they're having the town hall here in Holly. Thanks.
Mike Borman.
Yep, I'm here, and just a quick update from my neck of the woods. And this might only be interesting to people who know the Rockford area very well, or Wolverine's history of dumping in the Rockford area. But I live next door to a kind of a parking lot access area to the White Pine Trail, right on 12 Mile Road. And all day today and yesterday and this week, they're doing construction. In fact, I've heard the construction. It's loud and it's annoying. Lots of heavy machinery and trucks. They're paving the parking lot that I'm told used to be a dumping site of Wolverine way back in the day, called the Stowell Gravel Pit or the Stowell Gravel Pit, something like that. But used to be just a gravel parking lot that kind of butts up right against the Rogue River, like a fishing spot. But finally, the Kent County Parks Department got some money, and they're redoing the whole parking lot to make it nice and look better. So that's about all for me.
Thank you, Mike. Pam McQueer. Patty Baldwin.
I'm here and I do have an update. I live in Cascade Township and in the neighborhood just near the Gerald R. Ford Airport, just north of the airport. And right now we are getting the city water main laid in our neighborhood, which is wonderful. We are super happy about that. And that was partly in thanks to the work of AJ Birkbeck. And sadly, he passed away in November of 2021. And I sent all of you an email last week inviting you to the bench dedication in his memory. It's next Wednesday from 3 to 5. His bench is now on the White Pine Trail, kind of fittingly or ironically, or however you'd want to say it, just south of the tannery and just across the path from the monitoring wells. So it's in a great spot. It's been used. We visited last week and it's been used by a lot of people already. And we'd love it if you could come. I know a lot of you are out of town and won't be able to, and some of you have already RSVP'd, so thanks. I will put the Evite invitation in the chat, and if you're able to come, just go ahead and RSVP through that link. That would be great. And also, speaking of AJ, I'm also part of a scholarship committee, and I will put a link in the chat regarding the AJ Birkbeck Scholarship Fund. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Patty. I really appreciated the time that I got to work with AJ. He really helped us improve quite a bit on our website, and he was a pleasure to work with. So in the meeting materials that I sent out, I did also attach the email that Patty's talking about that has the e-invite for this memorial in addition to the scholarship information. Okay, Richard Burns. Rick Radisky.
Here.
Bob Pataki. Tamara. Sandy.
I'm here. I can't think of any updates. I can't remember if I said this at the last meeting, but I just want people to mark it on your calendars. The, I guess it's international, but the PFAS conference is coming to Michigan in 2024. It will be in Ann Arbor at University of Michigan. It will be June 10th through the 13th. It's going to be a rip-roaring fun time. So mark your calendars and plan on being there.
Thank you. Shalene.
I'm here and I don't have an update.
Stacy Taylor. And Teresa, I got you on the roll call, but also want to offer you opportunity to tell us about your community if you want.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Connie, for giving an overview. I want to say thank you to the ECO representatives that attended the meeting last Thursday. It was well received by the community. Curiosity was there. And as it had been stated, we need more answers regarding PFAS mitigation and notification to people and how it's handled. And we also want to be able to have a follow-up to the answers and to the presentations that was done by EGO. So that'll be coming up soon. But Connie gave a great summary and overview of what occurred last week. So thanks again, guys.
Thank you, Teresa. Tony. Bill Burnett. All right.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah.
It's a small group tonight, so who knows, we may get done early. Nobody's gonna complain about that on a summer night, so. All right, membership well, any shout outs? I think we would have done that in our roll call, but anybody wants to give hats off to anybody, now's the time.
This is Mary. I guess I'll say that again, we did not meet. Very busy with some other projects that we had going on and a couple legislative days for Geopan and for Sierra Club. So hopefully next month we might have something to report. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mary. How about the website review committee?
Yeah, we did meet this afternoon and we spent most of the half hour discussing some of the analytical reports that Kelly has access to and what kind of information we might be able to help decipher from some of that. And so we're going to be looking into that a little bit more in the next month.
All right, great, thank you. Preventative measures subcommittee.
Yeah, as I said the last meeting, I've had an opportunity to go through the document. There are a few website, links, updates. So I'll have to, I'll basically put those together and then we can talk about what needs to be to get them updated. Kelly, while I got you there, do you happen to know by any chance how many clicks have been on that document since we've had it in there to date?
We were actually looking at that today with the web review subcommittee, and I think in the last month it was 9.
Wow.
7 individual users. So 9 downloads, 7 individual users. I do know Gail Dugan on a number of occasions has called me about different things, and he and Pam McQueer continue to make copies of that document and pushing that really in their township and county. So when you're doing your updates, you might contact him because I know he made like over 100 copies of it to pass out.
Okay. Okay.
So I don't know, maybe he's gotten some feedback from people and could be helpful.
Okay, you're saying Gail Dugan?
Yep.
Okay.
Dave, I was trying to find it for another community member that had reached out to me, and
Yep.
I, for the life of me, could not find it on the website. Where do I find that?
Oh,
think
Oh,
Kelly's
she's
gonna
gonna show
Sandy.
me right here. I know. I know. What kind of a dum-dum am I here,
We have it in 2 places, actually.
Okay.
So if you go to the MPART homepage and scroll down under public engagement, you can access the document right here.
Okay, when I clicked on it, it looked like that was a video or something.
No,
Nope,
that's the actual document.
this is the actual document.
Okay.
But then also you can also access it through the COG webpage.
Correct.
It's right here. So it's in 2
All right.
places, one of
Got
which is right on the homepage.
All right. Perfect. Thank you.
Kelly, in order to do the updates, do I just need to put together a master, save it, and then send it to you?
Yeah, so the version that I sent to you had
Yep.
track changes on so
Yep.
that I can easily see what was changed.
Yep.
And then obviously we'll do the same thing that we did last time. Before we post it, I'll double check the links and
Okay.
just make sure that there's nothing that we need.
Okay.
But-
Very good. I'll take care of it.
Great.
That's all I
Thank
got,
you.
Sandy.
All right. Engaging the public subcommittee. Oh, Charlie's got his hand up. Go ahead, Charlie.
Oh, great. Sandy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, I thought I'd try and field that unless somebody else wants to. So somebody else speak now or forever hold your peace.
They're quiet as
Okay.
a church mouse. It's all you, Charlie.
All right, so I'll report out as best I can. We talked a little bit about what's been going on in the subcommittee in the greater COG the past few months, a little bit of review of activity, communications from the COG to MPART and responses from MPART to the COG regarding public notification. We talked about future direction for the subcommittee, and leadership was also discussed, and we had a short informal presentation from, I think it was Colleen Lynn, about her research and what she hopes to, how she hopes to tap into some of the COG members to help out with the research that she's trying to do. I think that's it. If I missed something, Mary, Rick, others, please chime in.
I think you did great. Thanks, Charlie.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Charlie. All right, so that's it for subcommittees. Any other questions, comments, concerns, ridicule, anything? All right. I think next on, what's next on the agenda? Kelly, help me out here.
I believe we're going to hand it over to Jen Gray with DHHS.
There we go. That's right. So we were going to do the fish study, but because of the scheduling issue, we're not going to do that. So I think you're doing the health assessment piece. Is that what you're doing, Jen? Okay.
Public health
great.
assessment process. Yep. So let me just make sure my screen is sharing okay. Are you seeing those slides okay? Okay, great. Thank you. So basically to start, my name's Jen Gray. I'm acting as the PFAS response coordinator. I've been with MDHHS as a toxicologist since 2008 and have worked on a variety of sites with contamination, PFAS, and other chemicals. So thank you for this opportunity to talk through this process and how it applies to PFAS sites. I'm going to briefly mention some background on federal agency content. So basically, where does some of our source material come from this public health assessment process? And then I'll roll right into the public health assessment process that we use for PFAS sites. And people are welcome to stop me at any point if you have a question or ask for clarification, or you're also welcome to wait until the end, whatever works for you all. So on the background side, basically in federal agencies, there's a public health agency that deals with chemical contamination, the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. They have a really great website. It's in the corner where they talk through the public health assessment and their guidance process. They have a couple of modules and training if anybody is interested. But this is basically the source of our public health assessment process. This process and the pieces of it get used nationwide. One thing that ATSDR also does is have a cooperative agreement program where states can apply and follow this process to evaluate like Superfund sites and other sites in their state. And Michigan does have this cooperative agreement, and there are about like 25 others around the country that do as well. So it's a very consistent process. ATSDR provides training and information and has been doing this. I believe their cooperative agreement program started like in 1985. So it has been doing this quite a long time. And Michigan has held this cooperative agreement throughout the duration of that. Just a quick overview per their information about the process. the initiate site scoping, basically site awareness. People know about the site, know about chemical concerns or community concerns. There's defining roles and responsibilities. So who's on your site team, what they'll be doing, what type of communication works, both for agency partners and community partners. A site strategy, so basically a plan, what we know about the site, where the contamination is, how we're going to evaluate it, or what steps we want to do get developed. Site information gets collected. So basically, do we know there was a historical dump site? Do we have initial chemical concentrations like PFAS in groundwater? Is there more information like with the North Kent investigation that residents can contribute about locations where there might have been dump sites, former contamination, like former workers know about practices. So basically all of that is collected. There's an evaluation of the sampling data. And I'll talk a little bit about this on the next slide, but is the sampling data, is the environmental chemical data relevant for human exposure evaluation? So basically, is it relevant for people, or is it more like ecological risk or concerning other aspects? Once that sampling data is selected and found to be appropriate to evaluate people's exposure, there's an evaluation with that. So how people are exposed, is it in the groundwater? Is it in the air? Is it in the soil? Taking a look at what screening levels are available. So like the public health drinking water screening levels, the MCLs, those types of things, what's available to do that initial look. Is everything above or below that? Or do we have to go because something above or something's hovering right into that? We want to look at how much people could be ingesting, like how much water they're drinking, how much chemical, the chemical levels that are there. And then that in-depth toxicological evaluation, like what that means for people exposed to those chemicals. And this oftentimes is limited by what's available in like epi literature, epidemiological studies, what we know about like PFAS and mixtures. Yep, Sandy.
I was just going to ask, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just
Oh,
thinking,
no worries.
one of the things I know, like the Southwest Detroit issue has been this kind of combination of exposure, like, so water, air, soil. And so while none of those may be above the threshold, do you consider the combination of if all of those are at the,
Yep, that's where when you calculate someone's exposure, like if a chemical is in the soil in their property, if it's in their drinking water, what does that mean overall? It's a little bit harder on a population basis when there's wide variability. Like if there's a lot of different combinations in people's soil, what you can do is just put the maximum concentration of soil, the maximum concentration in drinking water. And is there an issue, even if somebody is not living in a home that has like a maximum in drinking water and a maximum in soil? But that's a way that you can use that screening. And so if like your kind of maximum exposure that's possible is below those screening levels, you might be able to talk about people's exposure in that community, even though you kind of made up maximums together, but make that exposure scenario so you're looking at that, and then you're able to kind of go from there and see what that means. And then in this process, oh, Charlie, yep.
Sorry. In the slide there is the pH process. What is that? Is that a numerical simulation or a spreadsheet or a matrix, or what is that?
So it's really overall steps, and I'm kind of just going through this as ATSDR's process, and I'll talk through it in more detail about how we're applying it at MDHHS and the steps in the process. But it's basically steps in an evaluation process that gather information, look at people's exposure, which does use sometimes modeling or calculation of potential exposure doses, like just mentioned, can we add up the maximum in people's drinking water and the maximum in the soil so we can screen a site? You can calculate in various ways kind of the initial what that might mean to people in terms of like a cancer risk evaluation or some non-cancer risk evaluations as well. And then really carry that evaluation forward, like dig deep in the toxicology and epidemiology literature and see really what we know after that. So this is overall a process that uses a variety of tools to really look at people's exposure to chemicals. And
Okay,
then
thank you.
you're welcome. And then all of that basically is summarized usually in some type of document that's publicly available and talks about next steps. Like if the recommendation was we should mitigate people's exposure, what does that mean? Should people be getting like a point of use filter? So that's kind of the overview on the ATSDR process. In just a second, I'll go into how MDHHS is applying it to PFAS sites. But I did want to mention also, so along with, and this is a lot of words, I'm just using this to help guide some points for me. Basically on this website with the public health guidance, ATSDR also provides information about how this may vary from EPA risk assessment process, because there can be a difference. The focus with the ATSDR public health assessment process is really to look at people's exposure and what that exposure might mean. It's very focused to what a specific resident, because it can be as local as a single house, or the range of exposure that could be happening in a community. So basically, is there some type of information about the range of drinking water that people are drinking at this community versus like just national default averages and things? So can we tailor information to site specific real community applicable information? This does look at both past, current, and potential future exposure. So some difference could be if there's a potential for a building to be there, what does that mean for human exposure? That is definitely part of the ATSDR process. There can be some difference between what's there with EPA processes. The goal in the EPA risk assessment is really to help inform, is cleanup necessary, what remedial action should be taken. It really does use like a default, all these exposure pathways. We're going to use just the default basic exposure, which may fit a community, maybe higher or lower than a community's exposure, and see if we need to do that cleanup. So that's that EPA process. This ATSDR process really focuses in on what's applicable to the community. What can we tell people about like how much of a chemical people may be exposed to, and really what that might mean for the overall community health. Now, everybody, we still all, no matter if you're at US EPA, MDHHS, or ATSDR, we still have that limitation about what it means for an individual community member, because all of our information is basically on a population basis. We're trying to be protective for everyone, but it doesn't necessarily get tailored to a specific individual. So we couldn't say or not say whether a specific individual will be developing health effects. That's really beyond what any of these processes could do. So that's kind of where our source material comes from, the background, and just a little bit of detail, and more is available at that ATSDR website that's in the bottom corner that talks about the differences and the similarities between the EPA and the ATSDR process. So now I'm going to turn over to our PFAS site public health assessment process. So the process that we're using at MDHHS that kind of has those elements that I mentioned from the overall ATSDR process. And I'll try to tailor it with some examples specific to PFAS sites throughout the way. So this is our overall process. It basically looks like an on-ramp with a roundabout, and we have an off-ramp at the end. So basically site awareness. So we start onto this roundabout. We have the evaluation then of people's exposure. We have data-driven recommendations as we're collecting more data, both into the individuals and or community as a whole. We reevaluate people's exposure. So what have we learned through this data collection? And we keep going around in this circle until there's a permanent way that people's exposure can stop. So basically this process really won't end and we won't hit number 5, which is kind of the off ramp, until there's a permanent exposure mitigation. You can think of this as like a new well that doesn't have a contaminated aquifer or like a municipal water connection if we're talking about PFAS in groundwater. Now, of course, I'm going to walk through details of this process, but just to acknowledge this really involves an entire project team at a site. So there's an MDHHS project manager and team behind that project manager. So a toxicologist, people who are working on logistics for PFAS reducing filters, community engagement, health education, basically everybody on the team. There's a corresponding team on the Eagle project manager side that may have a toxicologist, it may have contractors, it may have a geologist. And then of course we have local health as partners for all of our sites. We have MPART, the overall agency as partners for all of our sites. And then differing involvement can occur through other state agencies depending on the type of site, what information is available, and what might be happening basically at that site with different site conditions. So basically starting at site awareness, once we all become aware of a site, there's a rallying, we get meetings together, we talk through the information that's available, we do that initial evaluation. And at this point, there's kind of 2 places it can go. And I'll talk a little bit more about the evaluation of people's exposure in a second, but 2 places we can either head down that road and do more work there and have a lot of involvement, or if it's a location where we know contamination is present, but there's no human exposure happening. So basically, if it's an isolated area of PFAS with groundwater, there's no residential wells, people aren't drinking that water. The PFAS in groundwater is not necessarily venting to a surface water body, so fish wouldn't be accumulating it. So it's that isolated exposure. We may be done in terms of like evaluating people's exposure. There may be nothing happening that we need to provide health protective recommendations. There could very well be ecological investigations and work that other agencies are doing, but that's kind of the off ramp for public health, where if people aren't exposed, there's not a potential for people to be exposed. We'll keep reevaluating and we'll check in as needed, but it may not be a site that we're closely tracking or closely working on. It's these sites with that possible or ongoing human exposure, so people being exposed, like drinking PFAS in groundwater, where we really move forward with that initial evaluation, which basically evaluates a lot of different factors, probably way more than what's on this slide. What initial data is available? So for example, we may have PFAS in groundwater data. We may have different types of data for different sites. How are people coming into contact with the chemicals? What's their exposure? So here's where, it's pretty easy. PFAS in groundwater, if people are using that as drinking water, that's a way people are exposed. PFAS in fish is another exposure route, but that's kind of the information that we evaluate. And then because of that evaluation of how people are exposed and like the levels and the concentrations of PFAS in groundwater, we check in on, so other than notification, is there an immediate action needed to mitigate exposure? So do we have the level of information that we are very concerned about it? So the parchment municipal water would be one example of that. So basically within hours of identifying those PFAS levels, there was not only just notification of PFAS in the water, but recommendations to tell people to stop drinking their water. Here's bottled water. And that's a really clear example. We have others where, precautionary filters are provided or basically we're concerned enough and we're not convinced we can get data fast enough that, we in the site team as a joint decision think we should probably provide filters while we're collecting more data to do this exposure mitigation so people are not drinking this water. So that's an example there. This evaluation doesn't only occur at the beginning. This is something that occurs as new data is collected, as we have more information about the site. For example, you could say, an example would be if residential wells in an area were found to be impacted, and we have indication that now it's a different area that might also be impacted. That evaluation really continues. And so that evaluation and what is needed for that evaluation really kind of keeps going. And that's where we coordinate with other agencies and develop that public health plan for sampling and data evaluation. So if drinking water needs to be collected, what residential wells do need to be sampled? What information does local health have about what residential wells are there? What other agency information is there as well? We document some logistics information, basically who's going to do the sampling, how are we evaluating the data, like for example, when will filters be provided, how we'll notify residents is another one. And that notification is really our next step where we have data-driven recommendations back to individuals or the community. And for this, so after we have that sampling plan, we know how we're going to interpret the data, some messages back. It's how either individual households are told or what recommendations are appropriate for the site. That is often joint between MDHHS and local health, where phone calls are made initially to residents. And then after that step, because that is the first thing we want to do, make sure individuals get their results back and any recommendations. There could be an overall site data evaluation. Like, does this mean we think we've captured all of the wells that need to be sampled? Or does there need to be a community report developed at this time? The type of report and the time frame for development does vary site by site. And we may decide we need 1 or 2 years of data before we really could do a good write-up of what we know about that site. There's also health education, community engagement, and outreach work. And again, the type of activities can vary along with the level of effort, depending on the site and the community. So a good example there is if there's only 1 or 2 wells impacted, we can easily handle those in one-on-one conversations. Whereas if we have a site with like 500 people, definitely different notification, and we might have to have more people making phone calls, or a fact sheet would be better than one-on-one conversations. So with our PFAS site education, engagement, and outreach, there's often a community profile developed. It gives us an initial awareness of the community. For example, as we're developing fact sheets and materials, knowing what languages are used in the community are very important. This community profile does inform the site engagement plan, which outlines strategies, how we're going to share the information, how we're going to work with residents and get them the information that they're looking for, and really gives us that foundation. It's reviewed by the multi-agency site team, and then we basically implement those plans. So then we're at 4, where basically we start going around the circle again. We do this evaluation. We coordinate with other agencies as needed. Maybe we've identified something different, like there's a concern with deer. So then we have to take a look at that. We reevaluate our existing sampling plan and data evaluation plan. So you connect back with our, what do we know? Do we need to change things? Implement the plan with updates, maybe change some parts of the plan or change messages or outreach as needed. Maybe we find out that it's better to have a website than a fact sheet, and people like posters with a QR code, and that's the way they're really getting their information. So basically that reevaluation occurs with the project team. We modify everything as needed. If something is not working, we like to fix it. And so we're doing better. We also like to improve what we have out there. So basically, do we think there's a simplified process that we can use for things, or better messages, or a clearer message. So we modify all of those things and move forward from there. Basically, that reevaluation is iterative. We coordinate with other agencies and keep reviewing these things until we're basically at a permanent alternative water available. So basically a way that, like PFAS in drinking water, we're able to tell people you're not being exposed to PFAS anymore. And that gets us to the step 5, which is kind of the off-ramp from this iterative process, where once there's a way that permanent exposure mitigation is available, we take that off-ramp and we coordinate with agencies as needed, either on like logistics of, is there funding through Eagle? Do we have to work with the municipality? Do we work with the local health department to help like make connections to municipal water? And then make sure that everybody in the community that is eligible gets notified. Yep, Dave.
Jennifer, I have a question. I've been listening to this. I don't know if you're aware, but currently in Escoda, there's an exposure assessment that's going on right now. How is this different from the exposure assessment that's happening in Escoda?
Yep. So a lot of what I'm talking about here is focused on collecting like environmental media data. So like drinking water data, how we can tell people that we do know like PFAS is in drinking water. You can stop your exposure by putting a filter on, would be something that this process gives you. So the exposure assessment in Oscoda is looking for what we can know about people's exposure. So we know that people have PFAS in their drinking water. It's not necessarily community-wide, but we know that's going on. But we do have like deer consumption advisories, fish consumption advisories. So for Oscoda, we're really looking at that. How could people be exposed in the community via other means? So not only drinking water, but taking a look at that overall exposure. So kind of the question that Sandy was also asking in the beginning, basically, how are we evaluating people's exposures? And so the exposure assessment is not just looking at environmental media where we can tell people, well, if you're drinking this water that has PFAS, you are being exposed. We'll take a look at what people have in their bodies, which includes, everyday sources that most of us can't avoid, even if we try. Because we're in an industrial society that has PFAS in consumer products, but then also look at specific PFAS sources in the Escoda area and see if people who are eating fish, are eating deer, have higher serum PFAS. So it's actually an investigation, a further investigation into exposure, not just being able to tell people, well, if you do drink the water, we know that it's there, or if you do eat the fish, we know that you have an exposure. It's actually relating how much PFAS people have to like how much fish they're consuming, or a specific species of fish out of a lake. And those are kind of examples because it really does depend on behaviors that people are doing that participate. And so I don't know exactly what we would get at the end, but if we do get people who are eating like Cedar Lake fish, Van Etten Lake fish, Lake Huron fish, we can see if that makes a difference in the amount of chemical that they have in their body. Do those behaviors change the chemicals that are present? And we can also, because the Escoda area exposure assessment includes other chemicals, take a look and see if there's a difference like in PCBs or mercury compared to PFAS by like the different places that people are consuming fish.
Okay, okay, so I understand. The only reason I asked that question is because this assessment that you're doing, I've been working on this PFAS in Escoda since 2015, and I don't ever remember us sitting down with MDHHS and going through this assessment. Is this something that you guys just put together for future use for other communities, or is this something you guys have had for quite a while?
So this process that I've been describing today is something that has been used at various sites with environmental contamination for a number of years. So I've been talking a little bit about what we're specifically doing, like in terms of the framework and structure that we have for PFAS sites. But this is a process that we've been using for a number of years at different sites. And I guess I don't know all of the site detail in Oscoda, but some of these steps and some of these evaluations have definitely been done in the Oscoda area, like an evaluation of drinking water. This is a process that's been used in recent years for that. We definitely did an evaluation back when fish in Clark's Marsh were identified. That's where we knew the levels were elevated. It was pretty much a do not eat for Clark's Marsh fish. Really quickly with a press release going out there. So was it precautionary actions taken to let people know and do that type of exposure mitigation.
So this is the process that you guys used when you developed the do not eat fish advisory, the deer advisory within 3 miles, and so on and so forth, correct?
Yeah, so yep, and it can vary. So this is very tailored to like PFAS and drinking water with a sampling plan. There's some timing differences that happen with wild game. It is unfortunately wild game. We definitely have to work with our partners on wild game. It's not like collecting a water sample out of people's faucet, but overall, yes, this is the
Okay.
process.
Got it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So basically, we're at this permanent exposure mitigation step, and along with making sure we coordinate with agencies for logistics and being as helpful as we can to get this process moving along, it's then making sure we provide notification for residents that this permanent exposure mitigation is available. Basically, your connection to municipal water is available. This will let you stop using a PFAS reducing filter because you're switching to a source of water that doesn't have PFAS. So basically, it's that notification of this availability, and then also some logistical details where once you connect to municipal water, we're going to be discontinuing replacement filter cartridges because you're on a water source that doesn't have PFAS. So you no longer need to be using a PFAS reducing filter, and you have, say, a number of months, and then no more replacement cartridges will be provided. So it's that notification of that process, and basically that you're done, at least for this example, in terms of drinking water with PFAS. So this is basically the entire process. We wrap up, we document that recommendations of change or things. And then basically for that site, it's quote unquote done for that exposure route. So that is pretty much it. That is the end of the process and my presentation. I'd like to say thank you again. And if there are other questions, I'm happy to talk through those, go back to different slides, or talk about different resources or topics.
I have a question, but does anyone else have questions before I jump in? Hey, Abby, glad you could make it. Long day.
It has been a long day. I was just going to jump in real quick. So, Jen, this might sound somewhat confusing to people who are listening to this presentation, but overall, I mean, we're talking about a document that considers a lot of different potential elements, but often we're developing these at the beginning of a project and then revising them as we go through the project over time. But generally, they're what, like a 3-4 page document for most of the sites?
In terms of the plan that we do develop, so basically that initial excuse me while I'm looking for it, that plan. So if we think we need to evaluate that ongoing human exposure. There's that sampling and data evaluation plan that does get developed. We do try to keep it as short as possible. If extra information doesn't need to go in there, it doesn't go in there. We try to have it be a very functional document. So that's one piece of this overall process, is developing that sampling and data evaluation plan in connection with other agencies. And like Abby is saying, we do try to keep it short. It has pertinent information in it. It documents things that are agreed upon, and of course can be updated at any point in this process.
And I think it's really important to point out, this is not the same as a sampling and analysis plan that we would do for groundwater sampling or media sampling. This is specifically what data DHHS will be using to evaluate to see if there's a true public health risk going on at the site. So it's similar language, but I don't want you guys to get too confused in the terminology we're using, if that helps at all. Go ahead, Sandy, jump in.
I don't know if Teresa's still on the call. I was just going to ask, I know she and Connie both brought up concerns about public health in the Southwest Detroit area. Is there one of these plans going on in that area? And if not,
yes,
if there
I'm still
isn't
on the
one,
line.
am I speaking? Do you want to just take that over, Teresa? I don't want to talk for you.
Okay, go right ahead and restate the question, because I was unmuting and you were still talking.
Okay, so my question was, is there one of these health assessments going on in the Southwest Detroit area that they brought up?
No, there's nothing going on in the Southwest Detroit area as far as testing for PFAS in the blood of the residents. And
or
that's
the
a
water
concern.
or the air?
Beg your pardon?
Or the water or the air?
Right. There's no testing, from my understanding, of going on at all.
So
if there is, we have not been notified. But as Connie had stated, we had some great concerns around the Gordie Howe Bridge, and also the occurrence of the PFAS that bubbled up during the sewer. It went back into the water system to go through our wastewater treatment plant, in which right now, and from my understanding, there's no technology being used to be able to rid the water of PFAS. I know there's technology used in other
I guess
countries.
my question for Jennifer was, how would a community ask for one of these to be done if there was concern that, there was fish contamination, water, air, soil? How would a community get this?
So this overall process is currently being, and I'll just rest on this one, but this overall process is being done at every official PFAS site. It's being done at other sites of various chemical contamination. This overall process in terms of what pieces we take a look at, what tools we use. So it might be developing that data, that public health sampling and data evaluation plan at different sites can vary, but this overall process is being used if we are aware of a site and we are working on that site. So I can't speak necessarily to specific sites in Southeast Michigan, but this overall process is used at sites of chemical contamination that MDHHS is working on.
Teresa, do you have your hand up?
Yes, I do.
Go ahead.
My is that when there was the sampling done, or what discovery of the PFAS in the groundwater and the soil of the Gordie Howe Bridge, from my understanding, the community was not notified. We were not contacted to let us know that the area had been was being mitigated. So to my knowledge, no mitigation, as Connie had previously said, has been done, but the construction began and it continues. We do have a lot of dust and dirt as you drive. If you go down in the area, if you've got a car wash, you got to go back and get a car wash. So there's a lot of fallout. And right now, the city has not made a statement, nor the state, to tell the people that that area that was in the beginning when the construction began and during the process of the construction, that there is heavy concentrations of PFAS, which is a danger to human health. So those are my concerns. You can Google some of the articles that said PFAS found at Gordie Howe Bridge construction site, and it will give you the map, and it will show the area is very, very large. That area, in my opinion, should have been declared a Superfund site for funds to clean it up. But we have not, as residents, we have not gotten any type of information regarding that. Thank you.
We'll follow up on that, Teresa, and get some additional information. My understanding was that those soils that they had originally sampled were being excavated as part of the bridge construction, but we'll follow up and confirm that with you so you have some additional data. And I just want to clarify, the people in Detroit are on city water. It has been tested for 4 or 5 years in a row now. We've never found PFAS in the drinking water for the city of Detroit. They have clean water, and the sewer incident was also taken care, areas in the process of being taken care of. That sewer has been cleaned out. The Marathon has put a lot of controls in to control PFAS leaving their site, but it has also not affected the wastewater treatment plant. So the biosolids from Great Lakes Water Authority and their discharges have all been within the standards for surface water discharges.
Thank you for that. Well, then we would also like to see what measures have been taken by GLE Scrap and Norfolk Railroad, because those were the other two sources that were this PFAS was traced back to. And with the your understanding that the excavation of the soils during the Gordie Howe construction, as I had mentioned in the meeting, I'm down there almost daily. The dust is flying, and they're doing dry street cleaning, right? So that means nothing's being watered down, so the dust is flowing freely. I went over and did a tour over there, and afterwards I was sick for 3 days, gritty eyes, and I had on mask. I forgot to put my goggles on, but it's a bad situation over there, in my opinion. Knowing about PM 10, PM 2.5, the particulate matter, and the dust and the concentrations of not only PFAS, but lead and other contaminants that were in that soil, because those are old factory sites. The glue factory, the soap factory, the linen and cleaning factory, those chemicals as far as cleaning fluids, old automotive places like Turnstead and Fleetwood, those are in those areas, and those used to be automotive industries. And so we know that that land is contaminated. And so we have not only PFAS, we have other concentrations of chemicals that are in those soils that nobody's been talking about. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Teresa. If you can get me a full list of your questions, I think that would be really helpful, because otherwise we're going to have a tough time trying to track down every bit of data if we don't know the exact concerns. So appreciate it.
Any other questions for Jennifer on the health assessment process? I think, Rick, you had brought this up, so that was a few meetings back, so that's why we did this. I don't know if this was what you were looking for.
No, this is really good, and I think it's good to look at. And the process for the fish consumption is different, but it's good to look at how this differs from a standard groundwater investigation, and just the level of detail that's required, because you're linking, health to certain exposures. And no, I thought this was a real good presentation. So
good. All right. Dave, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, Sandy, or Jennifer, is this information or this slide presentation on MDHHS's website at all?
It is not. So this process isn't at this point. I can say that the ATSDR, so our federal partner for public health, the ATSDR webpage, you just go back to that, has tons of information on this process. This is their main webpage. It's
Okay.
atsdr.cdc.gov/PHA-guidance.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, well, thank you. That was very helpful. It was. I love the off-ramp analogy. That was great. So,
And we do go around and around that circle many times with some of these sites because sometimes it feels like the new data coming in never ends. And until we get to that endpoint, then,
sure.
DHHS has got to continue in that process of continuity evaluation.
All right. Now I have to be honest. I think the next thing on the list was the grayling issue. Tony is not here today, and I don't know how many people are here from grayling. So I don't know if we want to put that off or if there's a presentation, if people are going to talk about the PFAS and grayling issue.
It wasn't
anything
on
to
my
say?
list. I can tell you that the Assistant Secretary for the Environment or for Energy Installations and Environment was there yesterday from Department of Defense, touring grayling, looking at the site. He brought his PFAS expert to the site as well to look at the base, look at the different areas of concern that were out there. So it is getting attention. It is getting attention from DOD. And then today, the same Assistant Secretary toured Wurtsmith with Tony and myself, and we went around to all of the different treatment locations and areas of concern at Wurtsmith as well, and then had a roundtable with some of the community members. So hence why I was a little bit late getting back.
A long drive.
It was a very long drive.
All right, and then I think the last thing on the agenda is, unless people want more on the grayling issue, if you do, speak up or let me know or ask the questions or email questions and we can put it on the agenda. All right, hearing none. There was some questions about the statewide testing program that was talked about at the last COG meeting. And I think, Mary, if you're still on here, I am forgetting what the questions were.
We talked about it a little bit in the engaging the public subcommittee, and we were just, I guess, kind of trying to figure out whether engaging the public or the COG itself, or that who should actually be looking at this. And when you get right down to it, are the COG members interested in doing this and that? And so Charlie and to follow up, Daniel Brown actually mentioned this as well last meeting of the COG. Charlie was wondering if we need to have a separate meeting aside from Eagle staff where COG members can discuss this between themselves and any other issues that we want to bring up.
I guess, what's the question, Mary? I guess I don't remember what the original question was.
Well, the original question that I had was in regard to the testing, the implementation of it, how COG members, I mean, I understand that you would provide us with the documents and the information in that you want us to present to community members, but will we be accompanied by like an MDHHS person, or anything like that, will it strictly be a COG member presenting that to their community or neighboring communities?
Oh, so we're talking about not the statewide testing program. We're talking about the statewide education program then. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what I was talking about.
Okay. I'm not
Sorry.
sure what this original, I think that was one of the things I needed to know on this particular bullet
I
was,
think when we had spoke before, the question on the statewide testing was there was, I believe, some grant money or something for statewide testing of wells. But then when she presented it, she said PFAS was not going to be included in that in the first round.
Mhm. Yes.
Wasn't that what we talked about, Mary? And we were wondering, like, does
You're
that mean well
correct.
owners are not
Yep.
going to be
You're correct.
a part of this for PFAS? When would they? I thought that was the original reason for that grant. How do we help advocate?
Yeah. Okay.
Which is different than I think what Mary was talking about.
Yeah, I think it is different. I don't have additional information on that. I haven't had a minute to check in with our Eagle staff that are administering that program at this point. The original language in the bill language didn't actually list PFAS, but we had kind of jumped to that, or I had jumped to that conclusion. But when talking with the local health departments, they wanted to get the program rolling before they tried to include PFAS in it. So we'll see what the next budget augmentation looks like, but I think that's one, it would be an easy slip in if we can get some more money set aside for statewide testing to see if we can get PFAS added into there. Because it wasn't a huge amount of money for the local health departments to do.
Okay. So then I think you were talking about something else, Mary. A statewide education program.
That's what we were discussing in the engaging the public subcommittee, more so.
Okay.
Yeah. But I guess my concern with both of them does have to do with budgets, because I think when you get to encouraging people to test their own water, like in our community, people have had their water tested by the local health department, but it has not included some of the things that have most recently been tested as part of the dump process with the $100,000 from last year. So when people were approached, they were like, oh, no, I don't need it because I already had my water tested. And, we had to explain that you might have had your water tested, but it might not include the type of things that need to be tested right now for the contaminants.
And you're talking about the other PFAS compounds that weren't included in the original analysis, Mary?
Actually, they were looking at the fact of like way at the beginning, when before the PFAS was even known, all that. So this was like, they were some of the very original people.
Okay.
But I think that's true of most residents. I wonder if there's not a better possibility of creating like a menu of different types of tests and letting people choose which ones they feel that, they would like to have. But I think you also have to be concerned with the fact that once people do testing and pay for it, are they going to want to come back after the fact and pay for more testing for themselves?
Mm-hmm. I do know that local health departments, and even in DHHS as well, when they get calls from residents who want advice on what kind of testing to do, they do walk through the different scenarios about what might be in their locations and what might be surrounding them, so they can help them decide what parameters for analysis is most appropriate.
Right, and Amy was talking about that during the engaging the public, And even just hearing her explain it, it got very confusing because there's so many possibilities when you look at, you know, the different sites all around the state.
Right, exactly. So we do need an education piece that goes with that because it is pretty confusing for the average resident. So,
Right.
okay. Well, if you guys think of more questions, specific questions around that, let's jot them down, send them in an email to us so that we can get specific answers for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'll let you guys take it away with MPART updates.
All right. Can I just get a standing ovation for Amy and Kelly here because they have put 12 new MPART sites through since the last time we met. 12. That is a mountain of work. And so I just want Kelly, turn your camera on and take a standing, and please stand up and take a bow because you guys have really gone crazy with the amount of work that you have put through in the last things. And some of these were, you know, we had a town hall for the Menasha paper mill, Menasha landfill. We had some local officials calls. There's been actually quite a bit of work in this. So, and as they say at the bottom there, we've got 19 more that need to go through the process. So we're working as fast as we can, but poor Kelly's lucky and Amy are lucky they have any hair left. It's been a very crazy couple of weeks here trying to get this all through. So thank you, ladies. All right.
Abby, I appreciate you putting me on the spot. My daughter's in the background listening to Pimple Popper through her headphones.
That's not good. All right. Thanks, Kelly. So yeah, a lot of work that's been going on. Obviously, we've got some areas of interest. The North Post of Camp Grayling is an area of interest. We've got residential drinking water wells being sampled around there. Independence Township is also out in Oakland County is an area of interest. We're not sure if what they're seeing is associated with a old dump or if it's something else. So, Patty, yeah, go ahead and ask your question. Or Patty, were you just giving a thumbs up for Kelly and Amy?
Oh, so sorry. I was wondering if there has been any news about the Hillsborough area of interest in Cascade Township. Has a source been identified?
No, I think the last I heard was they were looking at additional sampling. I know they're looking at additional Reswell sampling because we're still struggling to figure out what the source is. So Mike, yeah, you want to add in?
Yeah, they're working on defining the plume. It's hit or miss. And so they are out and will be doing additional sampling of residential homes to try to get a better handle on what and where that plume is. So we continue to work on it. Don't have a source yet, but we continue to look, and we're using, not only are we doing drinking water testing, and certain homes we're also doing, for lack of a better term, we're using the surface water test because it tests for more PFAS compounds. So on top of the normal drinking water, some of the homes are also getting a test that will do additional compounds with the hope that that will help us determine the source.
Okay. Have the residents been offered any type of bottled water? Probably the Kent County Health Department offered the under sink filters, but have they offered anything else?
Generally, we're not doing bottled water as an offer. We're doing all the Kent County Health Department's usually helping with the plumber to get out there and get those filters installed with the residents as soon as possible. So.
Okay, great. We lost our township manager, therefore our meeting has, yes, our meeting has been delayed. So he is now, Ben Swayze is now the Parks and Rec director of Kent County. So
I know we had a meeting with Ben right before he left. So the township should be up to date with what's going on, but there is additional sampling being planned there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, Abby.
Yeah,
I can provide
go
a
ahead.
little, yeah, a little bit more on that. So two things actually. One last Friday, yeah, an additional 107 letters went out to residents in the area last Friday. So they are working to get that sampled probably in the next couple of weeks. So that is, again, Hillsborough area being northeast of the Lax Cascade site. So the other thing that we're doing some split samples tomorrow in the field, southeast of the Lax Cascade site. Because there's some additional homes down there we were also concerned about. So that is happening tomorrow at 3, possibly 4 homes in that area.
A lot of homes, you know, not super high concentrations, but definitely above our standards. So we're trying to follow up on it and see if we can figure it out. It is kind of, you know, a little bit puzzling on trying to figure out the source. So let's see, there are obviously the Menasha paper mill and Menasha landfill. We've listed as 2 sites, but they are both in the general Otsego area. So it was formerly listed as Otsego area of interest. And so because both of those sites have groundwater concentrations, we've listed them as 2 sites and then left up the Otsego area of interest for posterity on the webpage. So you'll see that in some of these cases where we don't know exactly what the source is, like Independence Township, we've listed it as an area of interest. In other cases, we've basically transformed those area of interest into actual sites as we get additional data. So, Kelly, yeah, what am I forgetting?
One other thing that I wanted to mention on the screen is this is 12 new sites or areas of interest. We have 11 different site leads here. We have 4 new site leads just within these 12. And we are approaching 100 different site leads for the MPART sites that we have. So training new staff through the MPART process, lots and lots.
Yes.
Staff are working really hard. So
Yes, they are. This represents a huge amount of work for us. So Patty, did you have another question? Your hand's still up.
Nope, so sorry.
Okay, no problem. All right, any questions on these then? Obviously the web pages are all up, so you can go check them out. One thing that didn't get added to this MPART update that I wanted to make sure I mentioned is our Great Lakes PFAS summit is coming up in December. I think it's December 5th through the 7th of this year. We'll be doing another virtual conference, PFAS summit, for everybody and their brother. We're going to try to get over 2,000 people this year. But if you are interested in submitting an abstract for a presentation, abstracts are being taken now, and I don't remember the closing date. I want to say it's the middle of June, but you have at least a week or 2 yet to get your abstract in to do a presentation for the Great Lakes PFAS Summit. So, and that's something that those abstracts come in, they go to an abstract committee. I'm not on it, and and usually we have some outside stakeholders that help us pick out abstracts. So it usually picks a nice variety of topics for everybody to come to. So, and as usual, you guys will be invited and attending for free. Okay, so EPA method 533. This is a drinking water method. It doesn't replace. It's in addition to the 537.1, which was the old drinking water method that EPA has, and is the one that we've been using for many, many years through the Eagle Lab. We have changed over at the Eagle Lab to using EPA method 533. It's also a certified approved drinking water method for EPA. And so it does analyze for additional PFAS. As Mary was saying, we want to make sure we get as many PFAS analyzed as possible. So we're going from 18 PFAS to 25. It does require a little bit of extraction within 14 days and allows you to hold it up to 28. So anyways, it's a good method. We're excited about that. That is something you might have saw come through as a listserv note. So the other thing just to mention is we did get a letter back from a letter we had sent out. Those are all out on our MPART website. We sent a letter to EPA, USDA, and FDA asking for their assistance with some of our agricultural related PFAS topics. They sent back a note and said, you know, here's all the things that we're doing. And we said, but they said, if you'd like an opportunity to brief our interagency PFAS working group, task force, whatever they called it, we said, yes, we'd like to do that. So hoping to engage in some additional conversations with EPA and USDA and FDA on PFAS and agriculture. So hoping that that happens. So far, I haven't heard back yet, but you know, sometimes these things take a little bit of time. What else is on our next slide, Kelly? That is, let me just look and make sure I don't have anything else on our list. Anything else that you guys have heard about or want to talk about before I end my update? Because it seems like there's a lot of stuff going on right now. It seems like there's a lot swirling between the budgets and the political agendas and the, you know, different PFAS topics. There's a lot going on in the world.
Federally, the EPA is taking public comment for lowering the MCLs, and that's, I think I can find you this website that you can send any public comment in, supporting lowered MCLs for PFOA and PFOS, as well as this crazy formula for 4 other ones that are kind of a mixture. It's a clever idea. And then there's also public comment is welcome to make PFOA and PFOS. I think CERCLA, hazardous substances, and that public comment is due June 12th. So if people are interested in signing on to those or supporting that, you can. Charlie sent out a couple really good articles about fish contamination, I think, in Canada. Did you guys read that? Did you see that, Rick? It was very technical, so Rick's muted.
No, it was good. I read them, yep.
Up in Quebec, way up there.
Yeah.
Which is frightening. And then I know that New Hampshire, the U.S. Geological, whoever did soil testing in all of New Hampshire, and every single soil sample they took had PFAS in it. So that was a little concerning, given that it was like in the mountains and then areas. So I can send you that too.
That might be the one thing that we might not have mentioned. Kelly, I don't know if you've got the website up on a different screen. But if you get a chance to bring up the other documents, we should probably show them where that document is on the MPART website. We did put out it's what we call a concept validation for doing what basically incremental soil sampling in various forested soils. So this is under our About MPART, under Documents and Reports. And there is Tools and Reports. There we go. Under the Tools and Reports, and for some reason it always loads up kind of backwards. But if you just click on the date item posted on the right-hand corner, it'll come up, or you can do it Kelly's way. Concept validation, collecting soil samples to understand the presence and concentrations of PFAS in Michigan forested areas versus via composite sampling. Basically, it's a pretty technical document about collecting soil samples in forested areas in each county of the state. So it's one soil sample for 83 counties. So it's not at any arena representative of the entire state. And nor are we calling it background. So please banish that language from your thing. But in the back of it, there is a nice little table that compares what we found in Michigan to what they found in Maine, what they found in China, what they found in various other locations that had study data that was available to the researcher who put this together. And so Michigan's concentrations are in the same range. They're actually a little lower than what Vermont and Maine found. But there's somewhere between, and this is pretty low concentrations. You're talking less than a part per billion in soils. Starts to get to be pretty low. So we're at like 0.88 parts per billion in soils, down to basically non-detect. So we do see that in a lot of different types of soils. So anyways, or at least in forested soils, we do see that across the state. But I just wanted to let you guys know, if you're looking and wanted to take a look at that document, it is there, and we forgot to put it on the slides. So, okay, Mary, you've been patiently waiting.
I just wanted to, I guess, question or ask, when you consider that there were 12 new sites for this month for MPART, and I think you just stated 19 sites upcoming, how do we request or talk to our legislators possibly about getting funding to increase staff for MPART? Would you recommend that, or what are your thoughts?
I don't have the ability to give you recommendations. It is certainly within your wherewithal to talk with your legislators. I mean, I think they control our budget. MPART doesn't directly have a budget, but obviously the more staff that you give to Eagle, the more investigation work that can happen. But that's kind of the way the departments work. The departments ask for additional staff for various things, but that's all got to be approved through the legislature and through the policy processes. So, and I think you guys did advocate for quite a bit of looking at the policy agenda from Great Lakes PFAS Action Network. There was obviously a lot of PFAS related topics there that would benefit MPART as well as all of the process we've talked about today. Correct.
I was there, Sandy was there, several people from the group were there, from the COG. I would like to invite any COG members to join. GeoPan, Sandy and Tony are the leaders, along with some other community leaders, and no one is excluded. We were trying to feel out the process for, I think, getting going on this, and it seems to be well established now. But I did speak last week when we had the lobby day to some of our legislators about funding and that we need additional funding for PFAS in general, but also for staff.
Appreciate that. Yeah, it's not I don't have the ability to make recommendations directly to the legislature, just so you know. That's not within my abilities. So those kinds of recommendations should come from you guys. That's the correct format for that to happen. So,
Sandy, do you have a link to GeoPan that you could put in the chat for people?
I sure do. I will put it in there. It's not very clever, so hold on. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
And I think, so June COG meeting, are we still on for the regular date, Sandy? Or was there, seems like you and I were talking about something.
We could keep it the regular date. We can move it. It's up to you guys. I'm finding summer is getting harder and harder for people to move things around. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Keep it the regular date.
The
Take a month
regular
off.
date would be Tuesday, June 13th.
Yes.
All right, I guess we'll keep it there unless I hear lots of things not to. Did you have something going on, Abby?
I do. I'll try to squeeze it in, but I'm going to be away at a conference that night, so, or that day, those 2 days. So
I will actually be in Boston that week too, training EPA staff. So someone's got their hand up on the phone. Oh, is that you,
Sorry.
Teresa?
313-399-0737 or 0735. Whew.
Either Teresa
Yes,
or
that was me. I was calling in about the date. I
Yes.
may be, I'm scheduled to go out of town a couple of weeks in June. And so they're solidifying things. And June 13th and the 20th may be 2 dates that I'll be out of town.
Given that it's summer, do we want to skip a June meeting and come back in July? I'm just throwing that out there. Many CAGs don't skip a meeting in the summer for that very reason, but we can
It's
meet.
totally up to you guys. The only thing that we, I guess, are you going to be available, Sandy, or no?
I will not be available that Tuesday night, no. But Mary will be, and Jason will be.
And how about Jason? That's what I was just going to ask.
I'm available.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. The only thing I'm thinking is I don't know if we'll have a firm budget by then. That's the only thing that might be kind of exciting about that point. But other than that, it'll be more business as usual with getting stuff out the door. So, and that is.
I have a favor to ask. Kelly, could you send out a doodle poll or something and ask people if they would like to either meet on the 13th or skip June and meet in July? Is that possible?
June 13th or July 11th?
Yes.
Yes, I will probably do that tomorrow.
There's no
Yes.
rush.
Yes, you
Cool.
do not stay up tonight to do that.
Yeah,
so.
don't do it. Yeah. Okay, let's do it that way. Let's decide that way.
Okay. That sounds good. And if
All
you
right.
guys have got other topics, I'm hoping Jen can and Brandon Reed can come back and talk about the Eat Safe Fish Guide. But if worst case, we can always do that in July too, depending if we move the date around. So, all right.
Right, so, Mike's got his hand up.
Can I ask a quick question of Patty Baldwin or anyone who knows about that bench dedication ceremony next week? I want to attend that, except I work during the day. I see the time is scheduled from like 3 to 5 p.m. Is that kind of like an open house type thing where you just come and go as you please, or is it more of like a structured like 2 hours of content? Like,
Well, we will have a program. We will have several different speakers. Rick is working on that with Lynn. I don't think Lynn's on the call, but Rick is. They could speak more to that. And then it also happens to be AJ's birthday. So we plan on doing cake and ice cream back at the pavilion. So it's not an entire structured, you have to be there for the whole thing. But yes, there will be some type of a program.
okay, cool, thank you.
All right. And I was really hoping to come, but now my schedule looks like it's in flux. So I think I had RSVP'd, yes. But now I'm not so sure. So
Okay.
I'll let you guys know as we get closer.
Well,
Okay.
if you can, we would love to have you all, anybody, everybody. It is open to the public. And thank you. Thank you. If you're able to come, great. If not, then go visit Rockford another time and go check out the bench.
Yes, check out the bench. It's in a beautiful spot too.
Where is it?
It is, so if you're on the White Pine Trail, you're by the dam and you head north toward the tannery. It's right there past the waterfront stage on your left, right by the river. And coincidentally or ironically, the monitoring wells are just right across the trail. So if you see the monitoring
Okay.
wells, then you'll see his bench.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
right before a curve. There's a big, huge
Yeah.
curve in the trail that it kind of like balloons out towards the river and back.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
before you reach that, if you're
Okay.
going north on the
Yeah,
trail.
there's quite a few waterfowl birds that are out in the water too in that
Oh,
spot, so it's
Geese.
really
over the
nice.
Geese in their
trail,
assorted waste. Yeah.
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 Good.
We
Yeah.
hope to get that cleaned up before the dedication.
All right. Well, we got done early, at least a little early tonight. So everybody get outside, enjoy the nice weather.
Thank you.
You get
Sounds
some
good.
rest, Abby.
I know, I'm so tired right now.
I bet you are. All right. I'll see you guys. Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Night.
Bye, everyone.